So nice to be here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to chat about what I'm passionate about, which is media relations. And the thing is, I could talk for hours about it. There's a lot of information that I could share. I'll do my best to share, I think, highlights and then perhaps some do's and don'ts. Um, for one thing, if you're not really familiar what media relations is, it's basically trying to garner interest and media coverage for your clients, your companies, and sharing any major or sometimes minor news announcements. It could be from financial raises to new hires to data published in a medical journal. I'm in the healthcare, sorry. As Sue had mentioned, I'm in the healthcare field, so everything I say is going to be geared to medical, healthcare, pharma, biotech. Um, and the reason I use the word interest, I mean, ultimately we want to have coverage, but you have to build the interest first. In many ways, it doesn't just, people think you just pick up the phone and ta-da, you share what news you have and it'll get coverage. It doesn't really work that way. Um, Sometimes it's not immediate, sometimes you luck out and it is, but it's building relationships and getting to know reporters and what they cover and what their preferences are. There's a lot of organizations, some I've been on the board of a couple of them, Publicity Club of New York, the Healthcare PR and Marketing Society, where we do meet the media panels and we'll hear from reporters about their preferences. They don't want phone calls, or they do. Or if you're going to email me once or twice, no more after that. Don't do it on a whatever. They all have different ideas of what works best for them. So it's really the reason I think it's called relations is it's getting to know and work with media. And every reporter is different. So even in that sense, there is no hard and fast rule that you can say is for everyone when you're pitching and when you're reaching out. I have notes because I know I will go off topic, so I just want to get to everything. Let's see. Some thoughts that I have in general is that you have to always be willing to learn new things and new skills. For some of us back in the dark ages, we sent news releases by fax. I don't know if anyone here is old enough besides me to remember when that's how we functioned. I don't know how we did it. Sort of like, how did we get to anywhere without Waze in the old days or before MapQuest? It was the same thing in PR and communications. We were very much archaic. Now, as we all know, we email more than anything. You can call reporters. I find that to be particularly challenging. Sometimes it works when it's, oh, I got dry mouth. Sorry about that. I'm like those TV commercials. But the bottom line is you should try any and all tactics to see what works. And it can be nerve-wracking. I'm even at my experience stage, or as some people like to use the word, experience-rich stage of life, I'm still always learning things. And that's why nowadays, AI is the buzzword. And gosh, we didn't even have that 2 or 3 years ago. It really wasn't in our bandwidth to even conceptualize that would be a thing. But AI is definitely a part of PR and even media relations. For better or worse, we don't have to debate it, but it's here, and you do need to be up on how it's being used in the communications fields. But that was just one example of learning new skills. And all of this can benefit you in your career. You know, some people do Toastmasters and they find that helps them with public speaking, but it could also help you interacting with a reporter on the phone or even in person. I've had the good fortune of attending many medical meetings and conferences in oncology, cardiology, infectious disease, and so on. And I would encounter reporters in person, and that helped a lot with the relationship. I can't emphasize enough the significance of meeting someone in person in real life. And even as I'm speaking, I'm thinking that applies really to everything. We're all on Zoom these days, but when we have the opportunity, and Sue and I are both big advocates of this because she organizes in-person events in Connecticut, and I organize them in New York for some of these networking groups. And it really makes such a difference in your relationship. So I can't, emphasize that enough. Now, a lot of clients think that their story or stories are New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Today's Show material. And nine times out of 10, that's not the case, but that's everyone's fantasy or dream, let's just say. What's important to educate your clients, or if it's your own company, is that other tools like trade publications are far reaching. You want to be in trade publications because guess what? Those experts or doctors, besides reading, yeah, sure, they read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, they're reading their trade publication. So once you get in there, it's really a very good thing to have that searchable hit or whatever you want to call it. And frankly, in my career, I have observed many trade reporters who, well, first of all, reporters move around anyway, but many trade reporters that have landed at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. So now you have a relationship with a trade reporter. When I worked in the hospitals, I was with a Cabrini Medical Center, which is gone now. Back in the day, reporters told me they loved that I always responded to them because some of the bigger mucky muck hospitals in Manhattan wouldn't return their calls. Well, what kind of behavior is that? I mean, you treat everybody, I think, or you should, the same. And don't be measuring. I mean, you guys are in market research, so I know measurement's a big thing, but I think in the long run, it will go further when being in a trade publication than you realize. And that also applies to local media, that stories for local publications, local TV, local radio. There's a reason, like when I worked for the AMA, we would travel around the country, American Medical Association, and we would go to various cities and infiltrate magazines, newspapers, TV. And in so doing that, we got all these interviews for our board of trustee members. The same thing when you have a campaign and there's local, whether it's a breast cancer walk or it's something that's happening in a certain community, getting that coverage in local media, it's well, first of all, it's good to have that local coverage, but also very oftentimes it can be picked up by the major network. If it's local CBS might pick it up. So it's just thinking beyond what we all kind of focus on, Also, I highly emphasize having tools to do the job. So there are media databases. Yes, they're expensive. Many of them, including Cision, if you've heard of it, people join together to share a subscription because it's quite expensive. And having these media databases makes your job a lot easier. Some people in my field don't even have them. They do their own research, but it takes a lot more time. So having access to these databases, you also can be aware of reporters moving around. So it's something that I highly recommend. I also recommend subscribing to newsletters, whether it's through LinkedIn or just general newsletters, Substack, and free ones. You don't have to spend the money. The same thing with O'Dwyer's is a PR publication that's free. There's PR Week. There's many out there that you could pay for or not pay for, but you can always start with not paying. There's something used to be called HARO, Help a Reporter Out. It's now SOS, Media Queries, and reporters will list topics where they're looking for an expert or a patient or whatever. So there's a lot of tools out there, and I highly recommend that, as well as joining groups where, whether it's the PRSA people like, or it's the Hispanic PR group, or there's a group for many different segments of PR. Women in Communications is another organization. It's a way to network with people in your field, because one of the points, if I'm talking too long, I'm getting worried that I'm talking. Yeah,
Nancie, could you leave us with, because we're going to put up your question in a moment, could you leave us with just one more tip? These sources are great, and reminders, Start Local can be great, industry publications. One more tip you think we should know about trying to get our business or some piece of research that could be public out into the PR world?
What I just also want to leave you with, and if I think of anything, I can add that in, sure, is the fact that you need to educate your clients, or maybe it's yourself, and they need to understand it's a process. And it feels wonderful to get a PR hit, to get a media hit, and to get published, but it's something that you have to build on.